Hi, it's Carlo Milo here with the Pure Podcast. My guest today is Samira.
Hi Carlo, thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So today, what we are going to go through is I'm going to ask Samira a few questions. As always, something she didn't want to do was the quickfire questions, but I'm going to do them. She said she's still up for it. I changed the questions a little bit. And they're always a bit silly. I just quite enjoy doing it because it's a bit of fun. But so let's see how these go. There's actually 9 questions. I'm going to ask them quick as I can. You're going to answer them as quick as possible, right?
Okay, let's go.
They're really stupid, right? So it's fine. What would you do if you had to be? What animal would you pick if you had to be one?
Oh, I was having this conversation with my son. So spirit animals.
Yeah.
I think I decided that I can't remember. I was fierce, but also kind. Can't think what I was now. I'm just going to go lion.
A friendly lion. That's it. That's one. A cartoon lion.
Lions are friendly. Just don't get too close.
That's true.
Right?
And
Or you have your hand bitten off. So.
Perfect answer. A different answer to what I'm used to. Okay, so superhero. Who's your favourite super? Since you get kids, you know what I mean. These are quite good questions. I'm sure you've answered these many times.
Wonder Woman. Absolutely.
Wonder Woman. And why?
Because she's the embodiment of all women and feminism, and incredibly fierce and powerful and gentle and kind and caring, everything that women aspire to.
So she's got that power, but also that kind of feminine side as well.
Absolutely.
Love it. To add one thing to your bucket list, what would it be? Or even name one of the things on your bucket list.
As in things to do?
Yeah, like mine was 101, jump out of a plane one day, etc., etc. So what would you say? Is it anything?
See, I've already done all the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I've actually been banned from doing that from one of my doctors now.
Oh, really?
because I've damaged some of the nerves in my optic nerve, some of the neurons in my optic.
Bungee jumping?
Everything actually.
Is it?
Kind
Okay.
of an accumulation over the last 15
Yeah.
years. I'm just trying to think. So there's a lot of things I'm not allowed to do anymore.
Okay, that's fine.
If I could do it one more time, it would definitely be the bungee jump.
Oh, bungee jump.
Nothing more fearful than jumping off a bridge, feeling like you're going to die.
Because you can see, the thing is, the difference between that and doing a plane is that when you jump at the plane, you can't see the ground.
Fine.
So did I felt alright.
I feel like I was
In the plane was different though. When it shut, I'm like, oh, this is a bit intense. But when you're out there, it's just a bit. It's like a simulation.
You've got somebody on your back, so you're like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? And they're going down with me. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. Both die together. I love your thought process there. Not many people would think like that. Next question: who do you admire the most in terms of? Let's add this to a celebrity. I think we spoke about this before we started the podcast.
Yeah, so a few people. So generally, I follow quite a few, like a group of incredible neuroscientists who I'm in absolute awe of. So there's too many to name, but generally, Dr. Samira, they're all amazing in their own way, mainly because they're sort of groundbreaking, some incredible work in very specific areas of neuroscience. So this one particularly I just mentioned, she's looking at adulthood neurogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
So this is looking at the ability of our brain to create new brain cells, which we never thought was possible in the past. So now we recognise that it is, which is incredible because from a learning and developmental point of view, that means that we can continue to learn even in old age, which we once thought was not feasible. So, this sort of ties in really nicely with all the work done in anti-aging medicine and looking at why we're living longer and how we can prolong that even further. And some of the work is just mind-blowing.
So is that, for example, when you're saying when a person's getting older, to make this maybe a bit more simplistic, when someone's getting older, they'll then get to a point where you can actually still progress as opposed to what they initially thought was you're going to deteriorate.
Yeah, so we still don't know enough about it. We know sort of a point in the brain where it occurs, but within that sort of point specifically, we don't know enough. So Dr. Sandrine Thuray looked at also specific foods and diets that can increase the amount of neurons that can develop, and things like blueberries and tomatoes, which we never knew before. So
wow.
make sure you eat loads.
I eat loads of blueberries.
You're good then.
I'm good.
But also, with all the work on neurodegenerative diseases, so things like dementia is a really big thing at the moment. And now that we're living longer, we need to make sure that quality of life is there. So this type of research will help us to understand how we can try and prevent dementia from occurring if we learn more about exactly how these brain cells are developing and how we can try and nurture that more. And we can try, with all the work done on dementia at the moment, which is something I'm really interested in and I'm also working towards, we can identify biomarkers, say 20 years before the diagnosis of dementia. And if we can highlight these biomarkers, then maybe one day potentially we can try and prevent this condition from occurring at all. So all of this work collectively ties in with each other really, really nicely, and it's going to propel us to a much, much, much higher level when it comes to medicine in the future. So to kind of be a part of that, this is my goal.
What would the biomarker be? One example.
Well, ideally,
for like a 20-year previous, what would a biomarker would you look at?
So I'll give you very specific examples actually. So I've done quite a lot of work in dementia research. So with Alzheimer's, we know that the reason why Alzheimer's occurs is because there's an increase in beta amyloid factors. So this is basically a neurotoxin that collects in the brain over a period of time and then creates what we call neurofibrillary tangles. It's like a whole tangled mess of toxins, and it's just stuck in your brain, and then that sort of clogs up your brain and creates a cognitive impairment. So we now
just further down the line.
Yeah, and we're talking 15, 20 years here. So now what they're trying to identify is there a blood test we can do, say 10, 20 years beforehand, where we can identify that somebody's now on this pathway or there's an accumulation of beta amyloid, so that we can then try and prevent it. There is actually some controversial findings at the moment and some research coming into play where you can do a blood test to identify if you have Alzheimer's, and that some scientists are really excited by this, others are a little bit more sceptical, think it's too soon and it could damage progression of our research, but it's all very exciting.
No, that's fair enough. I said, see, when they say they take a blood test 20 years prior?
No, we're not there yet. No, so even like at the moment, to be able to just take a blood test and be told, yes, you have Alzheimer's, it's quite progressive. Prior to that, we were having to do, a battery of assessments, MRIs, PET scans, cognitive assessments. And even then, it's difficult to identify the distinction between moderate cognitive impairment versus a severe cognitive impairment. And it's hard to know, like at that point of diagnosis, a lot of the damage is already done. So the level of progression could be quite high. So you can go from being diagnosed and then within 2 years have quite severe cognitive impairment, not really have that lucidity or that insight.
Just become irreversible in a way?
It is irreversible at the moment. So once that damage is done, we can't undo it.
Yeah.
So the cure is prevention. So learning to prevent this from happening as much as possible. So now that we know that this is sort of what's happening in the pipeline for over a 20-year period, what can we do? What interventions, what drugs can we provide? Obviously, being a therapist, I'm less interested in the drug interventions. I'm much, much more interested in lifestyle interventions and movement as a therapeutic medium. So this is something I would like to explore.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll fire these last few questions.
Yes, that was a little bit longer.
No, go for it. I actually quite like that. We'll keep it to 10 seconds for these ones, right?
I'll try.
Pro in what sport?
Sorry, a pro in what sport?
If you had to be one.
Let's have a think. Running, definitely.
Just a runner?
I used to be a sprinter.
Okay.
When I was young, I was in the sprint team, so very proud of that. I never really quite progressed from there on. But I was representing the county, so maybe.
Remember that? Previous star. Favourite country and why? Is that your favourite country?
Oh, yeah. Thailand.
Thailand? Why?
So many happy memories. I got married there. We used to visit prior to the pandemic every year. So much people are just incredible, so welcoming and warm. The food is amazing. Just a really nice, relaxed vibe. Such a beautiful country. What's not?
Nice. No, absolutely, it's cool.